Alright, so I don't typically make videos like this. Generally, if you see more than like 2 videos on my channel, you know I make video essays, because that's what I enjoy. But honestly, as a huge Nintendo fanboy, the whole situation with the Switch 2 is kind of disappointing. I mean, I was and still am a Nintendo fan for, as long as I can remember, and honestly, as a company, they always felt different. I mean, I remember when the Xbox One and PS4 were like the main consoles that people had, like the whole console war thing going on at the time, with people constantly comparing the two. And during those consoles' initial release, I didn't really bother buying them. Instead, I had a Nintendo Wii. And boy, how lucky I was that I did. Now, I know a lot of parents, bought their kids Nintendo consoles because they appealed to a more family-friendly audience. Their games didn't have gore, violence, swearing. It was just pure and simple childish fun. And, as far as protagonists go, I had never seen a guy like Mario before. Most game protagonists were either very deeply written characters that you could make like a 3-hour video essay on, or just silent. But Mario was different. He was just a beacon of positivity. And again, sure, as far as, protagonists go, maybe, in the character development sector, he kind of lacked that. But as a kid, he was pretty much my hero. I mean, his endless positivity, his fearless heroism, and just generally his attitude towards life. I mean, trust, I know, it sounds like I'm glazing him, but like, I'm going somewhere with this, just bear with me. What I'm trying to say is that, a unique protagonist like this, like Mario, brought me so much joy as a kid. And I think a lot of people, especially right now, are reminiscing on the greatness of Nintendo's, previous games with Mario. I mean, since the release of Mario Kart World being the only Switch 2 exclusive, which is bizarre, but anyway, and the lackluster delivery of the game's quality, I feel like a lot of people are reflecting back on Nintendo's golden era of creativity. For me, that era is, the 2000s to the early 2010s. I think that time was a perfect expression of Nintendo's creativity and innovation. Like, never did I think that Mario, a simple plumber, was gonna be seen driving go-karts in a mall or on a rainbow. And speaking of rainbows, what literal genius thought of putting a plumber into space? Like, I wonder how the board at Nintendo felt when they just heard some random guy say, "Listen to this. How about Mario, but in space, huh?" I don't know, it just feels like Nintendo is capitalizing on the nostalgia that we felt as kids all those years back. I mean, most people now that played those games back then are like in their early 20s, maybe a bit younger, a bit older, whatever. And, that age is kind of a transitionary period where a lot of people are either leaving uni or going out for employment. And I think at that time, more than ever, a lot of people start missing their childhood. The simplicity of coming back home, not a care in the world, and just turning on your 3DS, your Wii, whatever you had back then, and just hearing Mario's iconic voice. It's something you can't quite capture again, and I don't know if it was due to us being impressionable at that young age, where we wanted to discover the world and were in awe of everything around us, as we ask endless questions to our parents about how anything and everything came to be. And I think as young adults, you kind of yearn for those feelings and emotions to come back. To be able to once again just come home and not have a care in the world. Not worry about what you're gonna cook to eat, not worry about any responsibility. Just to be able to fully immerse yourself in the magical and, I guess, almost like ethereal world that Nintendo is able to create. But my issue is that Nintendo knows how we feel. They know how Mario fans, Pokemon fans, The Legend of Zelda fans, they know how we feel about those games, and yet they proceed to exploit that as much as they can. Like, I know, again, the situation with the tariffs is weighing down heavily on Nintendo as it is with other companies, but it's a scumbag move to raise your prices to consumers that are suffering in the same market as the business. I get, from a business standpoint, they have to appease shareholders, they have to make profit on the new console so they can keep making games, but the issue is that they're slacking off on the thing that they're most known for, which is their innovation. On one hand, the Nintendo Switch worked, like it was one of their best-selling consoles, but they didn't really innovate with the Switch 2. I mean, they essentially tried to do what they did with the Wii and the Wii U, but again, the Wii U introduced a whole new gamepad, whereas the Nintendo Switch 2 just improved on the specs of the Switch 1 and introduced a mouse feature, which, call me crazy, but I suspect they're gonna bring the Wii as a Nintendo Classic thing that comes with online, like they did with the GameCube. I don't know, if I'm right, then I don't know. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that they're essentially just selling us nostalgia. And we as consumers know that. We're not out there buying the console for the graphics or the hardware, but for the games. Plain and simple, Nintendo is in the nostalgia business. And end of the day, as a consumer, you really have to ask yourself, how much are you willing to buy nostalgia for? For some people, the price of the Switch 2 might be nothing. And for others, it's an absurd price. But the fact of the matter is that Nintendo has gathered such a large consumer base that regardless on what side you fall, there will always be customers that are lining outside of Nintendo stores the day a new game or console comes out. It just sucks that Nintendo really doesn't respect us, like at all. They charge high prices, they refuse to listen to their community, and with the recent change in Mario Kart World, it just shows that they don't want us to have the freedom to enjoy their games how we want them. It's as if they're making games for themselves, not for us. Like, they just made the game for the staff team to play and threw us a bone by selling the game at like $70 or $80, dollars. Like, thanks, Nintendo. I don't know. It's just disappointing, man. A company who, as a kid, to me, seemed like they were the future of creativity and imagination, yet they themselves have fallen into the cesspit of, greed, the very same thing they tried to avoid. I don't know, it could be worse, because at least their games are pretty good, but it's just unfortunate that they just refuse to listen to their community. I don't know, I'm feeling a bit nostalgic about Nintendo right now, because I myself am going through some significant changes in life, but yeah, like, I don't know, maybe it's not just me that feels like this. Who knows? Let me know in the comments if you care to comment. But I'm also torn between like buying it, like my inner child really wants to buy the new console, but my adult brain is telling me that it's a scam and it's not worth the insane price that they put. Again, I don't really do videos like these, but I thought to give it a shot, to do something other than video essays, because I enjoy writing, I enjoy talking, so it's easier to do. But anyway, let's hope that Nintendo gets their shit together and actually listens to us, because otherwise we're gonna keep buying their games even if we don't like them, because, well, they're our childhood, and nothing can ever really replace that.